I just want to share with you something of the journey that's led us to sending you these 19 recommendations. You will remember that in December 2020, only 8-9 weeks ago, your task was to look at the 120 proposals and the 45 affirmations and to indicate which 5 proposals in each of the 4 themes and which 2 affirmations you were most drawn to. Which were you most drawn to? And I know that lots of you were able to do that in spite of the difficulties of our times in very innovative and exciting ways. So thank you for the work you did in that. And we received almost 4,000 responses. These were put into a working document. Now that document you will see. It'll be on the Synod website after tomorrow's meeting. And you'll see everything that you sent in to us. It'll be there. You'll be able to follow it through carefully. That document was looked at and worked through by the Synod Working Party. And we spent 3 days saying, what is God saying to us as the church in the Archdiocese of Liverpool through the responses that have come in? Now, that's a very difficult task that we set ourselves, because it's not just about counting votes, about saying which one received the most votes. We had to really try to both listen and to discern. And it was a hard task. In fact, it was a very hard task. After 3 days of a Zoom meeting, I think we were lost. I don't think it's unfair to say that at the end of our 3 days, we'd worked hard at the end of January, but I'm not sure we got to where we needed to be. But something happened, as often does when you are open to the Spirit of God, that led us to something of a breakthrough, or a path through the fog, if you like. And this thought came to our minds. What happens after the Synod has voted? What happens to what's been voted on? And that led us to reflect that the Synod is making a recommendation to the Archbishop for what it wants him to include in his forthcoming pastoral plan for the diocese. And so the 19 recommendations were born as we tried to work through what will happen after the vote. Where do these recommendations, these proposals as they were going to be, go? We landed on the idea of the Synod recommends. We, the members of the Synod, recommend. So it's our hope that in these 19 affirmations, we have lost nothing of the things that you, the Synod members, having listened to your communities and parishes, we've lost nothing of what you felt was important. Now, not every single thing could be included, but I honestly want to say that I think we have caught what you most felt drawn to and what you felt should be considered in the final stages of our Synod journey. And it's these 19 final Synod recommendations that we're going to reflect on this morning. These will be taken to the Synod in June, when you will be asked to vote on those. And then from that voting, then your recommendations, the ones that you think are the ones that the Archdiocese should focus on, will be taken towards the writing of the pastoral plan. So I hope you'll be able to see a clear line that's gone from our first praying as we prepared for Adoremus, for our listening, into our themes, into the proposals, now into the recommendations, and from today towards our Synod journey.
So what is it that you yourselves as Synod members, what are we inviting you to go away and do between now and June? The next steps then, well, let's dip in, let's see. Well, the 19th of June is the day of Synod itself, where all members, all however many it is, it's between 400 and 500 members in total, will be invited to consider each of the recommendations that we heard this morning in turn, and to indicate what they think at that stage about that particular recommendation. So that's going to be the invitation on the day of Synod. There's 4 possible responses in order to be able to make some sort of coherent sense of what people are saying and manage 400 to 500 people. There's 4 possible responses that we've come up with, which may allow some indication of something for each of those recommendations. So these are the 4 possible responses that you'll be asked to make, to choose one of these for each of the recommendations. One you could decide is that, hey, do you know, this is a high priority, which the Archdiocese should do something about this, should enact this very soon. So that's one response that you might make to each recommendation. Another response you might say, actually, well, the thing that really sits right for me is that, yeah, this is an excellent idea, but it's not actually the top of my list. Really good, but not the top. Another might be, this doesn't strike me as vitally important, so I can't really get passionate about this. It's not striking me as vitally important. And another response may be, this is not the right way forward for the Archdiocese. Shouldn't be focusing any energy time on this. So those are the 4 that you're going to have to choose between for each of those recommendations when we gather on the 19th of June. So that focuses the mind a bit on the tasks between now and June, therefore, because it brings to the forefront of our thinking and our reflection, how on earth do you decide which of those 4 to go for each of those recommendations? How do we actually decide that? And that leads us to that word that has accompanied us right through our journey together of Synod, discernment. That was at the beginning, and it's been there right the way through, the need for us to be discerning individually and together as Synod members in parishes, families, wider conversations, that discernment, listening for the Holy Spirit, that Spirit of God that's working amongst us that Ian was just talking about before. It's interesting just to check in on the language that we've used over these years that we've journeyed together, and to remind ourselves that the invitation to participate in the Synod journey that you stepped up to was to become a Synod member. And that language was very purposefully chosen, rather than a representative to the Synod from, I don't know, deanery X or parish Y, the Synod rep from X, Y, or Z. That's not the language we've used. We've said, no, you're a Synod member. And that's really, really very important, because it, in many ways, it would be a far easier task to be a Synod rep, because all you would need to do, well, it would be difficult enough, but it is a lot easier. All you would need to do if you're a Synod rep would be maybe to do some sort of poll in the parish, to do some sort of, to go around. You could go to with each of the recommendations, say, what do you reckon, everyone? And whichever gets the top votes, well, that's as a synod rep, well, that's okay, that informs the decisions I make. Yeah. So parish X thinks this. That would be a synod representative model. But discernment requires something rather different. Discernment requires us to be synod members, which says that yes, that voice which you may catch in terms of the strong feelings within the parish is very important. It's not unimportant, but it's only one element of the discernment that you need to do as a synod member, because it's not just about whatever catches the top votes, because the Spirit of God may be working through that still small voice that perhaps isn't catching all the votes. But you, as a synod member, may through, I don't know, who knows what, might have had a conversation with someone who didn't have it doesn't have the confidence to stand up in front of a group and to gather all that feeling. But you might catch something of the Spirit through that just little quiet conversation, or hear a word or something or other that may inform you and guide you to say, okay, I can feel something of the Spirit working here, and I need to weave that into my decision-making process. So hold that needs to be held as you contemplate the task before you in June. So the task from here to June is to continue that journey that you have been on already for some time, that journey of discernment. Do what you need to do to listen for the Holy Spirit, whatever it is that you need to do. Do what you can. So this isn't about setting massive guilt trips for people, having to think, well, I've got to do some massive operation here to really aid my discernment. Well, maybe there's all sorts of ways that you can engage with loads and loads of people and everything like that. And that's wonderful, and that's lovely, and that's great. But if you can't, don't worry about it. Do what you can to enable your discernment. And sometimes what you can, maybe very simple, maybe a conversation with a family member, with a friend, with someone who's got a different perspective from you, and that might be all that you need. So do what you can. Don't be getting guilty about, oh, I can't do massive consultations in the parish and everything like that. Don't worry about that. Remember that you've already done an awful lot. You've done a huge amount of all of this as part of the journey so far in the listening phase, when we were beginning to engage in those 4 questions through the generation of the proposals. That has all been part of your journey of discernment. So hold that, don't forget that, don't put that all on the back burner. That's an important part of the tools of discernment for you as you approach June. So go there and remind yourself of some of that. Don't be afraid to use creativity. That's the thing. Yeah, I mean, for some people, I suppose they need a structure. You need to discern. You need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, but don't be frightened to throw that out the window and do whatever you need to do, and be creative to enable your discernment to happen. So we'll have some ideas, but they are ideas. They may or may not be helpful. You do what you need to do. Remember, it's perhaps really important for all of us to remind ourselves of this at different times, but particularly now as we enter in this stage of the journey, that God is at work in all of this. And God's inviting you, me, us to join in with God's work. And perhaps there's something quite freeing about that, but it invites us to trust in God. Perhaps that's something that we just need to remind ourselves of, especially through these days. And it's maybe also a sense worth keeping in mind that a choosing between goods. So as we heard all those recommendations this morning, we might have sort of thought, one of our responses might have been, well, they all seem like really great ideas to me. Let's do them all. Well, okay, that's fine. That's not a bad response. But it's a question of then choosing between the good things. And perhaps a focusing question which helps in that is to try and be alert to what is God's invitation now? What is it that God is inviting us to now? Maybe that's a way of trying to then to distinguish between all these good things, if that's how you're feeling about them. And don't forget that in the journey here to June, personal prayer, discernment, can only be held within that sense of a personal life of prayer in relationship with Christ. That's vital, underpinning to the whole discernment journey. So, some help for the journey then. We do have a little bit of help. So it bombarded you with information today. So if you're feeling bewildered and confused and everything, don't worry about it, because there is help to try and make some sense of all of it. We have a book produced called Together on the Road. This contains all the recommendations that we received this morning, together with background reflection material which beautifully written by Bill Hupsch. Many will know Bill, who's accompanied us in the diocese over many years, an incredibly talented theologian, Bill, who has a way of putting things in plain English. That's his really great gift of breaking open, well, to my mind, complex theological issues and actually putting them in a way that I can begin to hope to understand. So we've been so blessed that Bill has been working with us over the last weeks and months to see what material we can gather together which help us to break open those recommendations and begin to glimpse the potential that may be held within them. And there's also questions which then help continue to support that breaking into the recommendations and the reflection material. Let's just have a quick peep at that book, shall we? Let me just go here, because you can see, so there we are, Together on the Road. And you can see it's broken down, if I get spool forward, to you see the different titles there, which will be familiar from our time together this morning. So it groups the recommendations under those different titles that we had: evangelization, ministry, invite and welcome in God's name, and so forth. And for each title, there's a section, a session, a grouping of those. And within that, there's a process that tells you exactly how to get into this. Exactly what you need to do to start with prayer, to move through reflection, and end up with the actual recommendation. So it's a very powerful tool and aid for our discernment over this next weeks, which you can use individually. It works for an individual to use to reflect, or indeed with a group. It's designed to be able to work with a group. And as I say, it's divided into 6 sessions, 6 sections. So what we're suggesting is to use the book will arrive with you in the post. It's being posted out on Tuesday, so it'll arrive sometime this week. You'll be able to receive a hard copy of that. Additional copies will be available via the Synod office, or indeed through St. Paul's Bookshop when it reopens eventually in April. And digital copies of the book will be available on the website. We're inviting you to think about perhaps one way you might use it is to meet together as a small group, a parish group in Zoom. So you might say, well, look, can I find 4 or 5 people in the parish, friends, family, I don't know, whoever, get together in a small group and invite them, can you accompany me over meeting through 6 sessions to come and just reflect together to help discern together. That might be something which will aid your discernment. You might just like to go for a walk with someone. You might find something in the material there and just to share reflections on some of the thoughts and the things that are sparked from the book. Maybe Synod members from across a deanery might like to get together, maybe to do some of the sessions together, journey together like that. That might be something. As a priest, maybe you might find some material there which might be used to inspire a homily, which then might spark reflection within the parish, which might aid your discernment. So there's all sorts of ways that this material can be used. In addition to that, we have something which I'm going to invite Chris to say a word about.
Hello, everyone.
Thank you, Chris.
Hello. So you are all invited and welcome. So this isn't something we're expecting everyone to come to, but something that is optional if it aids your discernment. We're going to be running after Easter week. So from the 14th of April, 6 of the sessions on Zoom with Synod members on Wednesday evenings, 7 till 8:30. So that's something just for Synod members, so not something to put out in the newsletter, and it's really something that that's there for you if you think it will be useful. So it might be that there isn't anything else going on locally, and maybe you don't feel able to run something on Zoom yourself. So this may be one way in which you can engage with others with it. Or it might be that you come along to the first 2 just to see how it works, and that might give you confidence to run maybe a small group similar to that in your own locality, in your own parish or deanery. Another thing that we've created to try and help you be able to use this material is a little Synod mini recommendations website. So the book is ideal if everyone is meeting in person, and it's good to have with you. But maybe if you're on the go, or if you're using a device at the dining room table or something, we've put all of the material on an easier to access website that is good for desktops, laptops, tablets, and on your phone as well. So it's got all the same material as the book has, but it's a much easier way of accessing it. So it will be linked from the main Synod website from tonight, and it will just take you through to the different sections that has all the same material. And it also does include, as is on the Synod website, for each of the 6 sessions, we've got a little reflection sort of starter video from Bill as well. 2 other things, just a slight shift of tone that we're offering. We're not expecting everyone to engage with these, but if you're wondering and wanting to sort of trace the line about how we've got to where we have in the Synod process with the recommendations, we've got a fairly chunky document that's going to be online called From Proposals to Recommendations. So this is our sort of working document that traces each of the recommendations and the affirmations that came forward most strongly all the way through to the actual recommendations. So it's got sections on each of the recommendations that it links it directly to. Referenced in this and also on the main Synod website is a website that's been created that basically has all of the information. So when you cast preferences back in December, all of that information is available online. So if you really want to, you can go and just look at what's happened and to see what came forward most strongly and understand how we are where we are. So we're not expecting these last 2 things. We're not expecting everyone to read this and everyone to go onto the data and try to understand it. But if you do want to, as part of our as part of our commitment to transparency, all of that stuff is there that you can look at as well. Thanks, Matthew.
Thanks very much, Chris. Thank you. So, plenty to take from here and to dive into, and happy exploring with all of that. Just a couple of things to draw your attention to before we draw to a close, and we've got the Archbishop's closing comments. Saturday, the 19th of June, the day of Synod, practically speaking, a decision has had to be taken that it will be on Zoom. We've been plagued since the beginning of the Synod journey in terms of the venue for the day of Synod. My goodness, the hours, the time, the energy that's gone into trying to figure out where it could be. It started out at Aintree, went to the Edge, then we think about the cathedral, and then in the midst of pandemic and everything like that, we sat down and we were trying to work through the practicalities, and the idea of gathering together in the cathedral for a whole day, sat on those hard benches with all the limitations of social distancing, because the minute anyone gets up to go to the toilet or anything like that, you've got the nightmare of risk assessment, trying to manage all that for a whole day. It's not going to happen. So we've had to make the decision on practical grounds only, that it's just not viable to get everyone together. It's just not viable or sensible to think about doing that. So we're going to manage it much like through the experience that we've had today. Not ideal, perhaps, but just a practical response to the reality of the situation that we're in. So to let you know that, 19th of June. And the focus for our gathering then becomes the far more easily manageable in terms of ongoing pandemic restrictions, gathering at 3 o'clock in the cathedral for Mass, because we're just gathering literally together for an hour. It's in and out, no one has to go anywhere, and we can actually manage that safely for everyone, even in the midst of ongoing regulations, theoretically. So that becomes the focus for things. The other significant bit of info is that, conscious that it's been a lot of information that's been given to you, you might be going away here with all sorts of different questions. Well, I haven't had a chance to ask a question, and it's a burning question. If you've got a burning question, don't be shy. Let us know. Contact the Synod office, and we'll do our best to enable some sort of answer, if we can, to that.